Please welcome LeVar Burton. And now the only one you want to call when it's a good day to die. We're going to make him angry, Michael Dorr. Once again, Michael Dorr. And now she can tell you what you're feeling, but let her know anyway, Marina Sirtis. Next up is the only walking computer to own a cat, Brent Spiner. And finally, the only man to save the Enterprise before graduating high school, please welcome Will Wheaton!
Now that's an introduction.
Thank you for asking. My favorite episode, I guess it was...
There is a crap load, yeah. The best kind of crap load. No, I think the general consensus was everybody's had some time, but we want to get sooner to questions than later. But this is the anniversary year, in case nobody had sprung that on, right? Here's a question I don't know if I've heard anybody ask. I mean, I've done it in some private interviews. Can we go down the line, and I'd like to ask everybody what your memory of the first time you met Gene, when you were auditioning and casting?
Who cares, really?
Give me one sovereign, and then we'll...
All right.
The first time I met Gene Roddenberry was when I had my first callback for Next Generation. I was, I don't know if I had turned 14 yet, or if I was about to turn 14. And I remember I was a huge Star Trek fan before I worked on Next Generation. I'd been into science fiction and fantasy and genre stuff my entire life. So when I got to go audition to be on Next Generation, I went and met Gene Roddenberry for the first time, and it actually gave me, I messed up my audition because I just geeked out in the room. I had a really bad audition, and after the thing was over, I called my agent from a payphone. Kids, ask your parents. And I said, I just don't think I did a very good job, and because I was just so excited to meet him. And apparently they had called her and said, we don't think you did a very good job, but we think you can be better. So I got to go back in later that afternoon. It was the beginning of what became a really wonderful relationship with Gene for me.
I guess I was around 14 when I met Gene. He was a highway patrolman at the time.
Working in a mine shaft in the Old West thing.
That's right. Busted me in El Paso.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Anyway, El Paso, yeah! Garden spot of Texas. No, I'll tell you what. I met Gene. I have no memory of that. I'm old. What do you want? I do remember, you know, Gene asking me right off the bat. Gene had a very high voice. If you've never met him, it was strange. He's a large man. But he talked kind of like up here, didn't he? Yeah, this weird,
with his hands.
With his hands, and he sort of talked like, would you mind changing the color of your skin? I said, no problem. What can it be? I went through like 50 makeup tests, every color in the rainbow. They put them all on a reel to show to Gene. We all went into his screening room to see all the different colors and have him choose one. The first one came up, it was gold. He went, that's fine. And that was it. And all I can say is I'm glad that the bubblegum pink didn't come up first.
First time I met Gene, I was 14 years old, and well, not quite 14. Well, obviously, I was very young, because I'm only 39 now.
It's exciting. Me and I are both turning 40 this year.
Both turning 40 this year, and you look good.
Thank you, so do you.
I met him at the auditions, although I didn't know who he was. I have to say, I know you're all gonna hate me, but I wasn't a big Star Trek fan. Ooh, I know. In fact, it was kind of ironic because about 2 months before I started auditioning, a friend of mine came to visit me from England, and she wanted to go and see Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. And I was like, oh no, really? Can we go and say something else? Really? You want to go see Star Trek? And she was like, yes, I do, because it's not going to be out in England for about a year. And I went, oh, blimey. Anyway, so I went to see Star, which I actually really enjoyed the movie. I was very surprised. So I really enjoyed the movie. But I didn't know Gene. I didn't know Gene had created Star Trek. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was there was this guy in the audition who seemed to be in charge. You know, but after I got cast, obviously, you know, all my fellow thespians were like, what do you mean you don't know who Gene Roddenberry is? And I had to do some homework, and he was really a dirty old man. He liked the ladies. Or maybe it was just me. But anyway. But no, he did. He had an eye for the ladies, but that was all he had. Just an eye. No hands, no feet, no nothing. Right? Just the eyes. But no, he was a really great guy. But, you know, we knew him as a person as well as you know, a big bird of the galaxy. And he was a really cool guy who used to sneak off to the Bel Air Country Club to have a drink and eat chocolate because he wasn't allowed to by Major. So he was just a regular guy who, you know, tried to do things behind his wife's back. And there I plead the fifth.
When I met Gene, he was 14. Actually, the first audition, unlike these guys, they had, I don't know about the bar, but most of them had like many auditions. Did you ever have auditions?
I had three.
Three, okay, yeah, because I had two. And the second one, the first and second one, I met, there was Gene in the room. I didn't actually meet him, but they said, oh, here, Michael, this is Gene Roddenberry and Bob Justman. And I think Pike, or one of those guys, was in there too. And that was the first time I met him. And like Will, I was a big fan of the original, so when I met him, I was cool, but I was excited inside. It was kind of neat. And that was it. Actually, the very interesting thing was that they said, okay, thank you very much. And they said, Michael, could you wait outside because there's a video you gave us, and your audition video, and we want to give it back to you. And I didn't think anything about it. I just went, oh, okay. And I went outside, and they told me right after the audition that I had the part, and then that day they sent me to see Westmore. So that day that they chose me, I went in to do my makeup with Westmore, did all the prosthetic stuff that he had to do. So that was it.
What was on the tape? Episodes of Chips?
Him as the extra on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Some of your finest work.
You know what, I'm going to erase the pictures of you guys. I'm going to say, yeah, LeVar, no.
I was a big fan of Chips.
Well, no. That was just...
Right? Who didn't love Michael Dorn on Chips?
LeVar said, they were ragging me about it. They said, oh, your lines on Chips, you remember all your lines. I said, I only had 2 lines. It was go get 'em punch, and it's okay, I'm all right, go get 'em punch. That was it.
You were my favorite Chip. Still, by the way.
Sorry, I'm Team Grossi.
You were the last one cast, Michael, weren't you? Because it was a race to get your prosthetics done before they started shooting.
Yeah. In fact, I think you guys were already filming, and I was getting makeup, and I don't even think that they didn't introduce me to these guys.
Took us a year to speak to you, didn't it?
No, but I didn't care. At that point, you got a pilot for a series, so I don't care if they never talk to you as long as the check cleared.
Well, in all fairness, Michael, in all fairness, you would come in at like 5 o'clock in the morning and get into makeup, and we'd all be gone by the time you got out of makeup. So it was 6 months before we know what the hell you looked like.
I would go on the set, I think the first, couple of weeks, and I go on the set, and nobody would say anything to me, because they just, out of makeup, because they just didn't know.
No, we didn't like you.
I feel like I'm the Hun flying over, England, and they got just taking shots at me.
Welcome to being on a panel with Brent.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting, and they just stuck me on the bridge one day. That was my first thing. They just stuck me up there and didn't say anything. And I think these guys were probably going, "What is that?" and that was it. But after a while, they kind of knew I was going to be around, despite all their best efforts. But so yeah, it was very interesting. Very interesting. But I was the last one. I mean, it was just an afterthought. In fact, the story goes is that I said, I called and I said, I really want to do Next Generation. And my agent called and they said, no, we're sorry. It's already cast. We'll see you if there's something open for you later. That means, don't call us, we'll call you. And I went, okay, fine. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call. They said, they want to see you as a part of a Klingon. And my agent said, what's a Klingon? I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. That was it.
I don't know that I was the first person. I was cast early.
Yeah.
I had actually met Bob Justman a few years before, several years before. My best memory of Gene is him taking me to lunch not long after we started. And like Will and Michael, I was a huge fan of the original series. So it was a real thrill to be invited to lunch with Gene. And what I took away from that afternoon was just how surprised I was at how human he was. Because in my mind, he was this great visionary who had created something that I loved really dearly and I knew was popular all over the world. But to see him eat and drink some oil dribble out of the side of his mouth, drop crumbs.
He had egg salad on his tie, didn't he?
A lot.
Would you like some egg salad?
I'll have an order of egg salad. We knew what was coming next. The tie was going to be covered in it.
Well, you know, Sir Patrick was supposed to be joining us today. All of a sudden, he was getting a paycheck, I guess.
Wait, Gandalf was gonna be here?
So, in his absence, let's tell our best Sir Patrick story.
Because the internet doesn't exist, right? Okay, I'll tell the first one. You know, Troy used to have these wonderful lines, you know, deep and meaningful lines like, Captain, he's hiding something. Right? And generally, you know, 99 times out of 100, we had really good guest stars on the show, and I didn't need to say, Captain, he's hiding something. It was pretty obvious, right? So, I think the last time I said it, and then I went and spoke to the producers and said I never wanted to say it again. I said it, and Patrick, who, I don't know, got up to bed the wrong side that morning, had a fight with the wife, I don't know what happened, but he said, "We know that, you stupid cow!" Waste of space. And then he looked at me, and he went and ran and he hid behind Brent. So I just walked on over to him and I said, "Excuse me, Your Majesty. I'm just an actress, okay? I say the lines, I don't write them. And there's no point in you hiding behind Brent Spiner, because he doesn't really have superhuman strength, you idiot."
My favorite Patrick Stewart story is, I can only tell the first half of it, and then, listen, you're going to understand why, and then those of you who are able to fill in the second half will do it on your own, and the children who I am sparing by not telling the second half won't have any idea what's going on. We were on the bridge one day, and I don't remember what we were doing or what, it was just me and Patrick, and Patrick says, "You know, Ensign Crusher, in days of old, ensigns performed certain favors for their
I don't really remember doing that. You know, Will. Perhaps now is the time. You know, I'm so sorry I couldn't be here. And yet, here I am. Patrick stories, none of them can I tell you. It's not my favorites. So I don't want to bore you with the bad ones. The good ones, you'll never know.
Maybe this would be a good time to go to questions now.
Bad, what do we do then? We got the line going already, we're all set with what we need to do?
That's the line.
Hi, we have a special surprise from LeVar.
A surprise for the bar.
All right, so my friend's voice is kind of sore, but she wanted to know, for the entire cast, Just wondering.
Is that a real question? It's my daughter.
Yes.
Off to college next year.
Amazing. You know,
I
I
remember you when you were an embryo.
You said the funniest things when you were an embryo.
Oh,
When you became a fetus, you were hysterical.
Oh, nothing but laughs in those days.
You are very loved. Now go away.
How are those roles compared to the ones in Star Trek?
Okay. About when did Mass Effect come out?
2008.
2008. It may have been here because I was here in 2008. But I remember in 2008, someone stood up and said, "I love you" in Mass Effect. Because before, you know, I don't know if you know, but they always do the voices first, and then voices always come first, and then they make the game. So it can take years for the game to come out, right? So somebody stood up and said, "I love you in Mass Effect." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "You did a game called Mass Effect." I said, "No, I didn't." They said, "No, you did, your name's on it." I went, "They're lying." To sell more games, they're lying. And he said, "No, you did it, it's your voice." And I was like, well, wait a minute. Because it was so long and I'm so old, I forget everything now, you see. And I had totally forgotten that I had done this game. Now, to be honest, doing game voices is a little tedious. Because you have to say the lines over and over and over again, right? So, and you're in a studio, you know, with headphones on, and you're not acting with anybody, and they just literally give you your lines. They don't give you, I didn't get the whole script, I just get my lines. And it's not fun, I have to be honest, it's not fun. You guys love it, and it's great, but as an acting job, it's not why I became an actor, to do voices on video games, sorry. I've hurt so many people now, but I mean, you know I'm always honest, I'm sorry, but it's, you know, it's true. It's kind of repetitive doing video games. You're welcome.
Yeah, but Michael, you did a voice in.
Oh, but she's awesome.
No, you don't get to do that now.
No, she's awesome. You've seen a picture of her. She
all over
is
video games.
awesome.
You don't get to do that.
She looks awesome. She is awesome. But she has to get killed. I'm a bit pissed that she has to. You have to kill her in the game.
Spoilers. Michael, you were in. You did a voice in Fallout 2.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was beside myself because I'd been off the show for a while by the time that game came out. And I was crazy for that game. And I loved it that you were in that game and I kept your character with my party to the end of the game. Yeah. Which I did not do with my friend Felicia Day, who is a character in Fallout New Vegas.
What they're talking about.
I couldn't bring myself to let you die. And I was like, get rid of her, I want the dog back. But
Does anyone ever read a book? Does anybody ever read a book?
How long was the makeup for that voice role, Michael?
It's lovely to see all of you again. My question kind of starts with a backstory. First of all, for many of us, you have become our heroes. And with this holiday, in remembrance of our veterans and those who have served and are serving, I'm just wondering, who would you consider are your heroes?
Good question.
I mean, luckily, when I was doing the show, I was sort of like I became a mascot to the Navy and Air Force, you know, because I'm a pilot. And all the pilots, and it was really cool, you know, with the fighter pilots. I always thought that they were great, but the guys that got me were the kids that were 17, 18, 19, you know, out there working, you know, especially on aircraft carriers. These guys are out there working, you know, 18 hours a day, and they're kids. I mean, they're literally kids, and they're doing really hard, dangerous work. And I always thought that they were guys that were kind of like the backbone that we don't hear about.
As an Army brat, my father served in both Korea and Vietnam, and for me, the heroes are the families who stay behind and hold it down while they're away on duty.
Our heroes are anybody who works to save animals. Whether you volunteer in a rescue or shelter, whether you're radical and you break into labs and set the animals free. They're my heroes.
Don't say it. It's too embarrassing. But thank you, anyway. You know, I don't know. I've never even thought about who my heroes are. Let me think about it. How interesting is this? No, I tell you what. The only first-hand experience where I've come face-to-face with heroes, when we were doing the series, at some point in time, we were all invited to Washington, D.C. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alan Shepard's first space flight.
I didn't go because I had a convention that weekend and I went to see my band.
You chose poorly.
The rest of us went, fortunately, and we met all of the Mercury astronauts that weekend. We were at the Vice President's house. It was, at the time, Dan Quayle. I don't know if you remember him.
Potato.
It was great. There were all sorts of like safety bumpers all over everywhere.
Exactly. But they were all there. All of the Mercury astronauts and some of the Apollo astronauts, some of the Gemini astronauts were there. But Alan Shepard and John Glenn and Wally Schirra, all of the astronauts were there, and they lined up to get our autographs. And it was just insane. There we were, pretend heroes, in the midst of serious heroes who got into capsules and were catapulted into space. It was an awesome experience to be in contact with those guys.
Invited us to an event. Where was it? Sorry, Will. It's just off the point, but you'll be next. This is how we treated him for, you know, for 5 years. Sorry. Anyway, remember when you took us to that?
I'm gonna leave when there's 20% of the panel left.
Okay. Remember when you took us to that event? Was it at Cape Canaveral, and we met all the charity event?
The Astronaut Scholarship Foundation.
The Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, and my husband really wanted to go because he's, you know, he's an Air Force brat, and so he was like really into space and all that stuff, and he was like, let me come, and I'm like, no, you can't come, I'm working. I worry about you, sit and wonder what you're doing all day. So, anyway, he didn't come, and when I went home with a picture of me with Neil Armstrong, yeah. Let's just say because I said to him, there won't be anybody important there. They'll just be like minor shuttle astronauts. And they were all there, the big guys. And he still hasn't forgiven me, actually.
I'm pretty sure that the minorest shuttle astronaut is still a pretty big deal.
They're not Neil Armstrong.
Let me say it again.
Around up
I'm
there.
pretty sure there's still kind of a big deal.
A little bit higher than the aeroplanes, right? Just go around and fix things.
are teachers. I have been more inspired by teachers than any other general group of people in my entire life.
Thanks a lot.
I'm a writer because of my teachers. I'm a good actor because of my drama teachers. And I'm a good parent because I was taught by my parents and the people that were around us when I was growing up. But I look out every single day, and I have friends who are teachers, and I watch just the entirety of the United States government aligned against education for no good reason.
There's a very good reason. Kids can't vote. That's the reason.
And it drives me crazy, and I think teachers are really important, and I think education is the most important thing that you can do with your life. The more you know, the more you can do with yourself. And that is a value that was instilled in me by a teacher. So.
All those people are heroes. Anyone who puts their life in danger to protect their community is a hero. Because I wouldn't run into a burning building. Don't make me come over there, will we?
And then there are those of us who are brave enough to sit on a panel with Marina.
Okay.
I have a question for Brent.
Hi.
How hard is it to get into character and stay into character for data?
Data, whatever, right?
I've never seen the show. Someone sent him up to ask that question. That's why he said data wrong.
How hard is it to stay in character? Am I still doing it? I'm out of character now. This is not... no, you know what? It was very easy because we rehearsed before we ever shot. So all of the stuff that, the clowning and the laughing and the misbehaving, that all happened before they said action. But once they said action, it was easy. It was just, that was the job. So it wasn't difficult at all.
When I sat next to him on the bridge, Brent would, we would be getting ready to roll, and Brent would go, hey, hey, and I'd look over at him, and he would like make these faces at me. Do you remember the faces he used to make at me? Like, I'm not gonna make him do it now, but I mean, do you remember the things he used to do?
I do.
Like, and it killed me every single time. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I would start cracking up, and they'd be like, okay, we're rolling now. And Brent would just go like, zap, I'm Data, and I'm like trying to get this out. I'm constantly getting in trouble. And I'm like, it's him. And Brent is just like that childlike innocence of Lieutenant Commander Data. How could he possibly have done that?
A really kid sitting next to him.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, Razor says it was me screwing up.
That was fun.
Okay.
I have one last thing to say. Live long and prosper.
Thank you.
No, that's Star Trek. You think we're here for the Mass Effect panel, and it's not.
We never said it on TNG.
It's the sentiment that counts.
Oh, okay. I thought Al, we were like, make it so, right? That's what that was.
I remember when Mr. Spock was on Star Trek The Next Generation. Just
one episode.
And his day.
Two, you're right. Three, 7.
Yesterday's Enterprise, which was a two-parter. Well, it counts as one episode, two-parter.
Let's go. I was wondering, what was your guys' favorite guest star that showed on the series?
Guyses? What the heck is a guys? I thought you said you guyses.
You guys,
I love that. Arizona thing?
guys is the plural put an extra ES on it. I would be your English grammar teacher as well.
Remember that panel where Marina made lots of friends?
You know what?
I really loved it when Billy Campbell worked on the show and played the outrageous O'Kona. That episode wasn't one of our better ones, but he just I really liked him, and he was so nice to everybody.
He's lovely blood. He's a lovely blood.
He's best friends with my good friend Colin Ferguson, and I was like, he was like, blah blah blah, my friend Billy, and I said, wait, do you mean Billy Campbell? And he goes, yeah, do you know him? And I said, well, I mean a little bit. We did one episode of Star Trek together, and apparently he's exactly the same now as he was when we did Next Generation together.
He's so cool. Who watches The Killing? You know you're pathetic. Honestly.
Lots of friends that day.
Best thing on TV.
Just so many friends.
Because TNG, no, really, because TNG, I know it's not on anymore, you know. The Killing is amazing, and Michelle Forbes is in it, and Billy Campbell is in it. You have to watch this show, it's really cool. It's on AMC, right before Mad Men, okay? But he's amazing, he hasn't changed an iota, and he's done so much, and the only thing he's changed is his name. He's changed his name. Now he's Billy, I get it. My favourite too, because he's so cute.
Guest star. My favorite guest star that we had, it's hard to, we had so many great guest stars. We really did. And not to mention Michelle Forbes several times, and Gene Simmons, and
Mick Fleetwood.
Who, from Fleetwood Mac, who shaved a beard he had for 30 years to play basically seafood on our show. He was a fish of some sort. He had one word, it was food, and he couldn't remember it. They actually, after about take 10, brought a card in that said food, and then it turned out he couldn't read.
That was an embarrassing day.
It was, wasn't it? My favorite of all was Saul Rubinek, who played Kiva Sancho in The Most Toys. A very inventive actor, and just great.
And did that as a backup. He was called in at the last minute.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
It was a sadly good actor. I don't want to go into it. It's too sad.
Right.
Saul told me, because we worked together on Leverage, and Saul told me that you called him.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, I'll do it, and came in without knowing anything about it.
No,
He said, if Brett wants me to do the show, I will do the show, and Saul saved that episode.
He did. It was great.
Most toys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dorney? Are you awake?
Favorite guest star?
What?
No.
We're up.
Dorney, who was your favorite guest star?
Huh?
Dorney? Hello? Earth to Michael Dorn. Who was your favorite guest star?
I liked Gene Simmons a lot. I thought that was for a number of reasons. I just thought she's old Hollywood.
Oh, you didn't mean the Kiss guy.
I also thought you meant the Kiss guy. Because if Kiss was on Star Trek,
See you
Peter
on that
Chris
show?
would be in a red shirt.
He wasn't on that show.
He was on Voyager.
Come on, Michael. You were talking, man. Go.
I'm done.
The guy with a doll.
I said Mick Fleetwood about 5 minutes ago.
Okay. Then we're done.
I think we've got it's that. It's okay if you cry. Go ahead. I give you permission to cry. I'm the mayor of this room, and I give you permission.
I just want to know, mine's more towards LeVar. Michael, I just want to know, how was your guys' relationship?
Guys, there it is again. It's gotta be in Arizona.
Welcome to Arizona, land of geysers.
The old faithful guys. That's what
I'm sorry.
She wanted to know how was the relationship between LeVar and Michael Dorn.
Personally, or the characters, or personally?
The truth. I'm sorry, what was the question? Actually, a very interesting story.
It is, actually.
It's a very interesting story. When I first got the job, I was going, wow, LeVar Burton. Because, you know, he's even at that time, he's still he's an icon. I mean, you know, Roots and all this stuff. And also, no, I won't say that one. But we had a very sort of strained relationship at first.
Rocky start.
A rocky start. And for a lot of different reasons that had nothing to do with either of us personally.
Well, it was at least in part your intentions.
You were pissed because you didn't get that part.
I was very upset. But I was a big Eric Estrada fan.
But the funny thing is that on the show it was at first it was a little rocky, but then I think after a couple of years, 3 years after you had your operation,
yes,
we had a very heart-to-heart talk, and got it all out, and everything was great after that. It was you know, that was the relationship. But it was like I said, at first it was, you know, I was looking at him like, you know, wow, you know, this is, you know, a guy I'd love to work with. And then I went, nah, I don't want to work with him that much. No, but that's how it happened. And but you know, like with all relationships, you know, Marina and I, same thing. I mean, she and I were not happy with each other the first year, and then something happened. It's a great story. Her brother was in town. She loves her brother, and she said, "Michael, my brother, you know, is in town, and he wants to do sports. He loves sports. You know, I heard you play tennis. Would you play tennis with him?" And I'm looking at her like, you know, this is a woman that's never asked me for nothing, you know. And so I go, yeah, okay, I'll play tennis with him, but I don't want to see you. And I played tennis with him, and he and I got along famously. Still really good friends, really love the guy. And we go over to her house afterwards for dinner, and she's like cooking. And, would you boys like some more pasta? Who is this woman? I couldn't believe it. She was the sweetest thing in the world, you know. And it just goes to show you, really, you know, people, you can't judge a book by the cover. And from that moment, she and I were very close. And like I said, LeVar, actually, LeVar and I were close on Next Generation, but we got really close on Deep Space Nine because he directed a bunch of those. And we were.
So, like acting-wise, or were there any particular that all?
I'll go first again, because mine's obviously working faster than everybody else's up here today.
Probably Final Mission.
Yes. I would say the scenes that I had to be, I was raped twice in Star Trek, once in an episode and once in a movie, and I think as a woman, probably the hardest thing.
Go on, Marina, come on. That was it?
That's it. She asked what was the hardest episode, and I said, no, when I was raped, and I'm sure all the women can understand that that would be really hard to act, right? It's really emotional. Yeah, it's like pulling teeth up here tonight, honestly.
Shall I go? For me, I had done this episode. It was the one where I was it was kind of a Frankenstein story-ish, old medieval town, me and a little girl.
Oh, yeah.
Was that?
Was that last season?
No, was it?
Yeah, last season, yeah.
Who are you? I'm sorry. And recognize that's Patrick, right? Oh, Captain. Anyway, I was doing this episode, and we had this thing usually, particularly in the last couple of years, where they really figured out how to do it, where one person would sort of carry a show, one or two people, and everybody else had an easy schedule. We'd do one day on the bridge together, and then the person who was featured would take the episode. And that was my episode. We did one day at the beginning with the whole cast, and then the rest of the schedule was just me and this little girl and whoever else was in the show. And the next episode following that, I received at maybe 10 o'clock at night on the last day of that episode, and the very next episode was called Masks, where I had to play 5 characters. And we were starting in the morning with me, playing 5 characters. I barely had time to read the script, much less figure out who these 5 characters were. And so we started the next day, and if you see the episode Masks, I think it's thank you. It's actually remarkable for some of the most preposterous acting ever put on the screen. Marina was laughing at me while I was doing it. So I was doing one of the characters. She's sitting across from me, laughing in my face while I'm trying to be heartbreaking. And then there was a moment at the very end, the very last day of that shoot, finally, was me and Patrick, 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. The crew was dead. They wanted us to finish so they could go home and go to sleep. And I had to wear a mask and be the goddess of the moon. And Patrick was sitting across from me off camera talking to me. Every word out of my mouth, he would burst out laughing. And the crew was getting more and more furious. And finally, they turned the camera around on him, and he had to wear a mask and be the god of the sun. And I could not get through a line of it with him. I laughed at everything he said. The crew hated us. We finished probably, a couple of months later. That was most difficult for me.
And yet the fluorescent veined creature. And I think all told, I was in makeup between putting it on and taking it off 21 hours for that episode. Boy, that was fun. Good times.
Glow in the dark.
Good times.
With Mark and Brian. Right?
With Mark and Brian, a couple of local disc jockeys in Los Angeles who didn't spend nearly as much time in the makeup chairs I did.
And it was down.
Yeah.